What happens when every threat tied to Spider-Man's identity erupts at the exact same time? And how does the Marvel Universe respond when one of its brightest heroes falls in a way that no one saw coming? Greetings, lore keepers, and welcome back to the Ordered Omnibus, where we meticulously map the sheer insanity of Marvel's mid-2000s continuity, one issue at a time. And today we're cracking open another archive of July of 2004, a month loaded with volatile status quo shifts and a rising tension across every corner of the Marvel Universe. And the Spider titles are taking center stage as the pressure around Peter Parker reaches an absolute breaking point. This is the stretch where Peter learns one name he never wanted to hear in Marvel Knight's Spider-Man, and a rooftop moment becomes violently personal in Spectacular Spider-Man. We also watch him discover a truth that was never his to begin with in Amazing Spider-Man, while the mutant community faces a loss heavy enough to shake their entire future in Ultimate X-Men. The villains are gathering, the heroes are breaking, and the timeline is under immense stress. Before we dive into this massive stack, I need you to drop a massive elbow on that like button, secure your subscription to keep the digital archive alive, rang that resounding bell so you never miss a single moment of the meticulously ordered saga. Maintaining this level of granular accuracy requires an immense amount of operational effort, and you're the ones keeping the lore alive in the algorithm. We have a massive stack on the table today, and the continuity is absolutely volatile. All right, Omni Archivists, it's time to open those books and maintain the integrity of the chronology. Let's get her done. Marvel Knight's Spider-Man, Volume 1, Issue 2. Panel pundits, Peter starts the issue already frayed, arguing with MJ in that tight, anxious way he gets when May's in danger. He wants her out of the blast radius while he hunts down whoever's targeting them. MJ pushes back, but the fear in his voice wins out, and she agrees to leave. Now back at his apartment, Peter spirals through every villain who knows his identity. He calls the Black Cat hoping for a lead, and she forces him to confront the obvious name he didn't want to say out loud. And the moment she says Norman Osborn, something clicks hard in Peter's head. He storms into Rikers Island demanding answers from Norman, who sits there smug and delighted to twist the knife. Osborn tells him he shared Peter's identity with at least one other villain and gave them instructions to seek vengeance if he ever got locked up. And Peter's panic spikes. May could be anywhere. He needs backup, so he heads to the Avengers Tower, but security mistakes his urgency for aggression, and a fight breaks out before he can even explain. And when the dust settles, the Avengers want his identity before they'll help. Peter refuses, already having been burned by secrets exposed, and swings off furious and alone. And his next step is to the Owl, now the closest thing New York has to a crime boss. Peter makes a deal he hates. He'll owe the Owl a favor if he can find out who took May. The Owl returns with two names, Electro and Vulture. And the story cuts to a sleazy club where the both villains celebrate a recent score wrapped in money, drinks, and bad decisions. Electro heads to his room with a girl on his arm, opens the door and freezes. Spider-Man's already inside, waiting in the dark, ready to end this hunt before it ends his family. Mystique, Volume 1, Issue 14. Archivists, a terrified Czech mutant flees the Austrian woods, burning a soldier's face with a touch before being dragged out of a clothing shop and beaten. The only clue he leaves behind is a scorched word, derma-free. Mystique lounges at Coney Island when Xavier's astral form interrupts her downtime. He explains that Derma-Free, a European dermatology giant, has unveiled miracle cosmetic cures, but rumor has it that they're secretly testing on mutants. Mutants are dying so humans can look pretty? Mystique snaps. Xavier sends her to Sweden to investigate, ordering no killing. Forge arms her with a PDA gun, complete with organic tissue sensors and non-lethal darts. In Stockholm, Shortpack briefs her. She'll impersonate Helmut Stein, a wealthy German investor with virulently anti-mutant views. Stein's meeting with Derma-Free CEO Helena Carlson should expose the truth. Carlson greets Stein warmly, bragging about the beauty industry and dismissing inner worth as something only poor people care about. And when Stein asks about mutant testing, Carlson casually confirms it. Mutants shorten time trials, reduce costs, and it's not like they're human. Mystique telepathically begs Shortpack to let her kill Carlson. Instead, she shoots her with a PDA dart, knocks out a guard she briefly dated, and steals Carlson's identity. And in Carlson's office, she downloads files revealing the mutant trials are in Vienna, and something on the screen shocks her, visibly. Impossible, she whispers. Shortpack warns her that Derma-Free somehow detected her handprint. They were expecting her. She has 1 minute to escape, but before she can shift forms, 2 identical strongmen enter the office. Not anymore, Mystique thinks. The mission has gone from covert extraction to immediate survival, and whatever she saw in Carlson's files has rattled her more than anything Dermafree's done. She-Hulk, Volume 1, Issue 3. Lore Keepers, we're dropping a heavy brick on She-Hulk issue number 3. Jennifer Walters handles a localized supernatural courtroom procedural featuring a vengeful ghost trying to manipulate a legal system to sentence his ex-girlfriend to death. Jen smashes the prototype engine, the ghost gets banished to a supernatural prison, and the entire case wraps up entirely too neatly. It fails the threshold because there's zero lasting impact on the wider universe, leaving the continuity unchanged. This is just a localized detour, so we're bypassing the courtroom drama completely. Spectacular Spider-Man, Volume 2, Issue 14. Narrative navigators, we are hitting another brick wall with Spectacular Spider-Man issue 14. And while this chapter delivers a phenomenal character-driven narrative told from the perspective of a young boy watching a rooftop fight, it completely fails our core continuity tests. The emotional beats certainly hit hard, but there's absolutely zero ripple effect on the wider Marvel Universe, and Peter Parker's status quo remains completely untouched. And because it's a purely self-contained story, acting as a filler for the main timeline, we're dropping a brick on it and keeping this meticulously ordered saga moving forward. The Pulse, Volume 1, Issue 3. Omni fans, at the Daily Bugle's morning meeting, Robbie Roberts announces that Terry Kidder has been murdered and assigns Kat Farrell and Ben Ulrich to the story. And across town, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage argue over Jameson's job offer until Jessica breaks down and then accepts the call from the Bugle. It's a good gig. At the Bugle office, Detective Regina Gans examines Kidder's cubicle and refuses to share the details with Ulrich, citing that the paper has a nasty habit of roasting the NYPD. Jessica arrives just in time to join the investigation. Farrell heads to the morgue where Tommy explains that Kidder fell from up high into a reservoir and had bruising on her neck. She was strangled. An Iron Man flies overhead, a daily occurrence Tommy notes with a casual awe. Farrell meets with Jessica and Ulrich in the Central Park to share what she's learned. They consider how many flying people live in New York, and how quickly S.H.I.E.L.D. will get involved when a superhuman is responsible. That night, Ulrich sneaks back into Kidder's cubicle. The drive is gone. Gans took it, but her answering machine still holds a clue. A message from Cheryl Dozer begging Terry not to pursue the rumors of missing Oscorp employees. Ulrich's mind jumps immediately to Norman Osborn. If Terry was investigating Oscorp disappearances and she was strangled and dropped from a height, the pattern is familiar. A little too familiar. Ulrich calls Peter Parker for help, the only person he trusts when Osborn's name enters the room. And the case that began as a reporter's fall into the reservoir now points towards one of New York's darkest legacies. And the Bugle's investigative team is about to collide with the shadow of Norman Osborn all over again. Thor, Son of Asgard, Volume 1, Issue 4. Omnians, we're throwing a massive brick on Thor, Son of Asgard, Issue 4. The chapter is nothing more than a flashback where the young Thor, Balder, and Sif head to the mines of Jenny only to be attacked by emotion-feeding creatures, while Loki fails to cause any meaningful mischief. And while it proves a minor glimpse into the childhood dynamics and features a quick rescue by Karnilla, it triggers absolutely no ripple effect on the modern continuity. The permanent status quo remains completely untouched by this isolated standalone adventure, and we're bypassing this filler completely to maintain the integrity of our meticulously ordered saga. Also, if you look at page 5, you'll see that Sif sends off Thor and Balder to find food and firewood so that she can go ahead and bathe, but the artist has actually drawn Balder and Sif leaving the area. Ultimate X-Men, Volume 1, Issue 45. Cosmic Crusaders, on the Capitol steps, the X-Men live their worst day. Beast is killed by the Sentinels. Storm cradles Hank's body, refusing to believe he's gone until Xavier confirms it. She erupts, warping weather and hammering a giant Sentinel with lightning until Jean telekinetically shoves civilians clear of its fall. Xavier forces Storm to sleep, Iceman catches her, and Cyclops battles the second robot. And Kitty has Nightcrawler teleport her into its head, and she phases through the circuits blindly, wrecking the systems until the Sentinel collapses. Colossus holds its weight long enough for the lone child to escape, and Xavier tells Emma Frost, "This is why we must do more than teach. Humans are not ready for us." Secret Service rushes Emma, and she screams, "Get away from me, human!" And Karma contacts Fury. S.H.I.E.L.D. arrives, and Fury orders Black Widow to debrief Karma and tells Dugan to let the X-Men leave quietly. Then he calls President Bush, requesting executive permission to pursue the Sentinel conspiracy. Only 3 people have access to that program, and one of them's dead. Fury promises the president it'll be over in an hour. And in the White House, the chairman of Joint Chiefs and Secretary of Defense discuss their plan, publicly declare the mutants hostile, claim the president as a casualty, and seize control. But the secretary suddenly speaks with a different voice. It's Karma's voice. She's puppeteering him. Fury appears on screen announcing their arrest for treason and the conspiracy to assassinate the president. Karma drops the chairman's gun and smashes his head against the table when he tries to kill himself. Later, the X-Men, Fury, Karma, Frost, Alex Summers, and the Dazzler attend Hank McCoy's funeral. Storm cries as Wolverine and Cyclops cover the coffin. And back at Xavier's, they watch the news coverage of the attack, and Xavier tells Emma, Allison, and Alex the school is open for them. Their old lives are now over, as the media will target them. Emma admits that she's shaken, and Xavier urges her not to blame herself. He wants the school to be a place for new ideas, not just his. Alex admits that he froze during the attack, and Scott tells him it happens to the best of us. Aurora cries again as Beath's death is replayed on TV. Xavier quotes, "Why did God create the world? And what do I do next?" And when Scott asks the mirrored question, Xavier answers honestly, he doesn't know. Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 2, Issue 507. Omnians, Peter Parker wakes from a dream that already feels wrong in the panels behind him. Mary Jane smiling, wavering, and then spiders pouring from her face as she warns him about a pretender. He snaps awake to Ezekiel's call and turns on the TV, watching the city drown in spiders. And when he hears that they've reached West 7th, the realization lands slowly and heavy. That's where MJ's addition is. Meanwhile, her addition is collapsing on its own, nerves rising, then a spider-covered car crashes through the door. The swarm floods the theater, the director bolts, and Spider-Man arrives in a blur to pull MJ clear before diving deeper into the infestation, already sensing it isn't random. Ezekiel intercepts him again, warning that the Gatekeeper is searching for him. 2 intentions running parallel, Peter's to save the people, Ezekiel's to save Peter. Peter chose the crowd, rescuing a woman trapped atop a car as a swarm thickens into a human shape. His punch passes through the face made of spiders, and the Gatekeeper's voice rises from the dark. It speaks of hunters, prey, blood, and the question Peter never asked out loud. Why him? The answer lands late and sharp. The spider chose him for his buried rage, his instinct to defend the helpless, and his need to fight back. And the Gatekeeper makes it clear, this attack is coming for the Protector, not the city. The world dissolves into memory, not his own. Miguel warning Ezekiel that stealing the power from the spider will demand a price, that only one chosen can exist per generation, and Ezekiel is not it. And the ritual plays out in painful detail, Ezekiel bleeding into the altar while Miguel warns him the true cost will come later, when the Gatekeeper arrives to finish what he started. The continuity beat snaps into place. The Gatekeeper shows Peter a version of his origin using faces he knew, not faces of the people who were actually there. Everything goes black. Peter wakes in the jungle, Ezekiel standing over him, apology already in his posture. It's between them now, and Ezekiel has every intention of surviving. Cable and Deadpool, Volume 1, Issue 3. Fellow fanatics, Cable hides out in Safe House 14, telepathically checking in with Irene Merriweather while nursing the bullet Deadpool put in him. Xavier arrives uninvited, sipping expired milk and quietly dissecting Nathan's choices. Cable admits that his powers have surged since the techno-organic virus receded, then surged again when it returned, leaving him exponentially stronger, but physically unstable. He also asks Xavier not for medical advice, but for philosophical direction. What should he do with a power this vast? To demonstrate the scale, Cable telepathically disassembles the entire cabin into floating components. And Xavier warns him that having the power to dismantle society does not grant him the wisdom to rebuild it, and that someone will always try to stop him. Cable whispers, "Or die trying." Meanwhile, Deadpool hallucinates his own salvation inside the One World Church, imagining himself blue-skinned, handsome, and adorable. In all reality, he's delirious, strapped down, and being used as a guinea pig to stabilize the facade virus. Crutch and his monks prepare Deliverance, a global unification plan powered by Wade's healing factor. Cable infiltrates unseen, calming Deadpool telepathically and promising he'll save him. Just not yet. Days pass as Cable observes the church's rituals until Wade emerges fully converted, preaching peace and urging Cable to join. And the illusion drops. Crutch reveals that they detected Cable long ago, but let him roam to prove their sincerity. Cable stays, wanting to see more, and even as Wade insists he's finally found inner peace, punctuated by killing a dragonfly with a pebble. Crutch unveils the final test, a machine that transmits the facade virus through the optic nerve. And Cable allows the demonstration, watching his hand turn blue, and admits the cure works. And that he likes. Then he rips the entire machine out of the floor, declaring that he should be the one to administer the deliverance. Crutch triggers the backup plan, the virus blocks Cable's powers, and his techno-organic infection erupts, and the machine crashes. Wade draws twin swords, revealing his peace was a lie. "I said I didn't want to kill anyone," he tells Cable. "I was lying." As Cable's body spirals out of control, Deadpool lunges, and Deliverance begins its violent unraveling. Captain America, Volume 4, Issue 26. Steve Rogers is a passenger on a small military transport heading into Washington when disaster strikes. The engines fail, the controls die, and the plane drops into a catastrophic descent. Steve grabs the yoke, calling for emergency clearance as two other aircraft nearly collide with him. The crisis triggers a flashback. Steve and Bucky in war, racing to rescue GIs from a crippled aircraft in almost the exact same situation. The memory is sharp, loud, and terrifying. The kind of moment that never leaves him. And in the present, the disabled plane hurtles towards a Washington monument, and Steve fights to keep it airborne long enough to avoid mass casualty. Later, Steve meets the presidential candidate Lester Paley and the strategist Harry Camus, who warn that the media is already spinning the crash as a publicity stunt. Worse, Camus brings up the child endangerment accusations tied to Steve's wartime partnership with Bucky. And that accusation triggers another flashback, Bucky being brought before the military intelligence, learning Steve's identity and being told he could become Captain America's counter to Hitler Youth. Steve remembers explaining the responsibility, a beacon of liberty, not a sidekick. He recalls the drone plane mission, the hijacking, Bucky leaping aboard, and the bootstrap that killed him. Bucky Barnes didn't die because he was a kid, Steve tells Paley. He died because he was a hero. And back in the cockpit, the plane is seconds from disaster. Steve manages to steer around the monument and crash lands into the reflecting pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial, skidding across the water in a controlled miracle. The crowds rush in, stunned that anyone survived, and when asked how he pulled it off, Steve thinks of Bucky, of sacrifice, of responsibility, and of the weight he still carries, and answers quietly, "I didn't do anything. I was lucky." Captain Marvel, Volume 4, Issue 23. Fellow fanatics, the final brick from this stack lands squarely on Captain Marvel Issue 23. This chapter plunges Genevieve into a dystopian alternate future to fight a massive alien alliance, but it completely isolates itself from the events currently rocking the main 616 chronology, because the overarching plot relies heavily on the time machine mechanics and alternate timeline battles that are ultimately erased in the closed loop. It completely fails the permanent status quo test, and it functions as a self-containing detour with zero lasting footprint, so it gets officially bricked from the digital comic archive. Daredevil, Volume 2, Issue 60. Comic Collective, the raid in the Yakuza hideout is fast and hard. Daredevil, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist smash through the room with the kind of coordinated violence that makes criminals rethink their life choices. And Sano Ren tries to bolt, but Matt tracks him effortlessly, hearing the MGH pill in his pocket before Ren even touches it. And Matt tells him to go ahead and take it, so there's no doubt who wins. Even juiced up, Ren gets dismantled, kicked through a window and dropped to the street where the cops and feds are waiting. Matt forces him to confess to Agent Driver's murder and to reveal the drug factory location. And when the stunned officer asks if he's backed, Matt answers, "Well, looks like I have to be." And on the rooftop afterwards, the four heroes regroup. Matt thanks them, but the message is clear. He's done pretending to be retired, he's back full-time, and he's going to make sure Hell's Kitchen never gets carved up again. And back at Matt and Milla's apartment, the tone shifts. They embrace, but Matt admits he's not fully healed. Milla wants to go home, and Matt wants to know where Foggy went. She told him to leave. Foggy told her Ben Ulrich's theory, the one that Matt hasn't denied. Milla asks if it's true, and Matt doesn't know. He thinks it's possible, and she's devastated. Marriage vows are promises, she says, and Matt hasn't been straight with her. She walks out, leaving Matt alone with the weight of every lie he's ever told. And the issue closes with Ben Ulrich reading his new Pulse article, Superhero Smackdown, a headline that lands like a judgment. Matt has reclaimed Hell's Kitchen, but his personal life is collapsing. The Yakuza are exposed, Ren is in custody, and the heroes have reestablished their presence. Yet Matt stands in the quiet aftermath, hands on his head, realizing that saving a neighborhood is easy compared to saving a marriage. Excalibur, Volume 4, Issue 1. Saga Squad Xavier sits in the ruins of Genosha, staring at the memorial Polaris-shaped. 3 faces fused into one: Magneto, Xavier, and the Sentinel. 16 million mutants died here, slaughtered by Cassandra Nova's Mega Sentinels, and Xavier feels their shadows everywhere. He reaches out telepathically across the island trying to locate survivors, but the strain without Cerebus sends pain lancing through his skull. He arms himself using the hidden weapons inside Magneto's coffins, remembering his Korean War nickname, the Good Shepherd, the soldier who always found the missing. He straps the coffin to his wheelchair and begins the brutal trek across the dead island, determined to rebuild something in the ashes. Moira McTaggart appears, not a ghost, but a projection of Xavier's superego, teasing him and challenging him. She asks why he keeps pushing himself, and Xavier admits that he's not here for penance, but because mutant births are spiking worldwide, and the human backlash is rising with them. Wicked emerges from the rocks, suspicious and angry, demanding to know where the X-Men were when Genosha needed them. Xavier apologizes, telling her that life is a work in progress and tragedies can't be predicted. Aberrations swirl around her, and she insists she must get him to safety before dark. Xavier sees her honor and courage, even as she hides them behind sharp edges. Unus and his lackeys attack, but Xavier casually shuts down the 3 Minions' minds. Unus boasts his force field make him untouchable, until Freakshow arrives. A small teen who transforms into a giant, towering, 4-armed monster and swallows Unus whole. Xavier assures them that Unus will be extruded unharmed and promises to help ease Freakshow's discomfort. He tells them he's come as a teacher, inviting them to return tomorrow for lessons, and as they leave, a voice asks if Xavier used telepathy to make them go. The coffin rises into the air and Magneto steps from the shadows. What? He shakes Xavier's hand, telling him that with everything that's happening, it's best that he keep a low profile. Genosha's ghosts have drawn its 2 oldest rivals together again. And with that, we close the cover on yet another massive chapter of our deep dive, bringing this heavy stack of continuity to an end, my lore keepers. And what an incredibly dense archive it's been, forcing Peter Parker through the absolute ringer as we witness the heavy emotional toll of Amazing Spider-Man 507 and the brutal high-stakes actions over in Marvel Knight's Spider-Man #2. We watch the mutant landscape continue to fracture in the alternate X-Men 45, while Matt Murdock's faced the absolute breaking point of his crusade in the gritty pages of Daredevil 60. The foundation lore of this universe is shifting rapidly, and the sheer weight of these parallel events proves exactly why we meticulously build this chronological timeline. But don't close that digital archive just yet, because the timeline never sleeps, and our meticulously ordered saga is marching straight into the next heavy rotation. And next time we'll be tracking the catastrophic fallout of Logan's desperate hunt for the Feral Weapon X survivor known as the Native in Wolverine 15. We also watch as the Tiebroker forces the reality-hopping team in the Earn Your Wings arc in Exiles 47, and we see exactly how the First Family handles the backlash stemming from their takeover of Latveria in Fantastic Four 513. Now finally we break down the high-risk shadow op of Professor X to dismantle a deadly mutant trafficking ring in Mystique 15. Make sure you drop a legendary like on that button, secure a solid subscribe, and ring that resounding bell so you never miss a single moment of the ordered omnibus. We are building a definitive digital archive brick by heavy brick, and your support is what keeps the algorithm at bay. Leave your theories down in the comments below so we can dissect these intricate comic threads together as a community. We'll be seeing you next time for more mid-2000s madness. Keep your reading order strict, your continuity cataloged, and we'll be seeing you next time. Here are the issues we'll be reviewing next week. Same ordered time, same ordered omnibus.